Hi, welcome to Reddit Tea Time. I, 31 female, was recently invited to my boyfriend's cousin's wedding as his plus one. It was a really nice wedding ceremony, and then later on we were sitting at the reception as the wedding party entered. The entrances were like they all were, a little ridiculous and cringy, but it is what it is. Just your typical wedding entrances. Then the best man and the maid of honor were introduced, and in their entrance, the maid of honor twirled the best man, and I thought that it was a little weird, but just chalked it up to being silly and having fun. Then came the toast from the best man. The best man didn't use a script on his phone and just spoke to everyone, a crowd of 400, which was surprising to me because typically, men at the other weddings that I've been to need some material to go off of and keep their speech going. In the speech, he didn't really seem to touch on the more masculine things that you typically see in best man speeches, but rather on things I thought were more feminine. When he finished the speech, he went directly in for a hug with the groom rather than a typical handshake or whatever else guys do. All of this, and plus how much it seemed he cared about his appearance, led me to say to the girl next to me, "That was a good speech and all. Do you think that he's bisexual?" She responded, "Well, that's his fiancé right there," as she pointed across the table to a girl, to which I then turned to her and asked the same thing, if he was bisexual. She looked confused and said, "No," to which I responded, "Are you sure?" The girl next to the best man's fiancé immediately responded, "Well, I'm the best man's sister, and I think I would know if he was." And it turns out that I was at a table with many of the groomsmen's plus ones and some of their family members. I took the hint to change the subject, but it seemed like it was a touchy subject for some reason. The night went on, and apparently word had gotten back to the groom's family. My boyfriend is the groom's uncle, and the groom's family was upset with the comments that I made. As it turns out, the best man is really close to their family and felt embarrassed that someone would say this to him, and some thought I should apologize to the best man and his fiancée for continuing to press questions. But I felt it was a valid question that I was curious about, and even tried to defend it more by saying he seemed to care too much about his appearance, and that he danced with a bunch of people and not just his fiancée throughout the night. Not grinding or anything, but just didn't have his full attention on only dancing with his fiancée. This has caused a small strain in my relationship with my boyfriend because his family is upset with me, but I don't think it's valid. I just want to know, am I the bonehead? Now for some comments. You're the bonehead. In what messed up world do you live where men can't hug or give speeches? You're the bonehead. You are being rude and intrusive by questioning the best man's sexuality based on some superficial and stereotypical assumptions. You also ignored the clear answers from his fiancée and sister, who obviously know him better than you. You're the bonehead. You thought he liked men because he did a silly dance, could speak well, and focused on more emotional things in his speech? This type of thinking is hurtful to everyone. Heterosexual men can dance and speak and have feelings. And you're implying the opposite, that gay or bisexual men can't do more traditional masculine things. What the hell? This is toxic masculinity in a super weird way. The next time you go to a wedding where you probably don't know many people, keep your mouth shut and your inane judgments to yourself. I, 29 female, live with my husband, 30 male, in a nice house in a smaller town. We have double income, no kids. Our house has a pool in the yard. It's really nice since it does get quite hot during summers. Our neighbor, 32 female, is a single mom of 3. Her house doesn't have a pool and it's a lot smaller than ours. Both me and my husband babysit for her sometimes, which is why I know this. Yesterday morning when my husband had already left for work and I started to work from home, I heard noises from our yard. Our houses aren't right next to each other, so it's quite easy to tell that the noise is from your yard. So I went to check and our neighbor and her kids were swimming in our pool. I was confused since she has never come to our house uninvited. But I went to talk to her and asked what was going on. She explained that she had a day off from work, so she wanted to do something nice with her kids, so she decided to borrow our pool since we don't have much use for it since we are child-free. I asked her nicely to leave since they had come uninvited and were there without our permission. She thought I was joking, but when I asked her again, she got defensive and demanded that I should give her valid reason why she and her kids can't be there. I didn't give her reasonings, but I told her that I would call the police if she didn't leave and told her not to show up uninvited again. She did leave, but kept cursing at me and even accused me of classism. I think it's important to mention that because we live in an area where the houses aren't next to each other, You can't see inside our house even from the furthest point of our yard. So me and my husband tend to hang out just in our underwear or sometimes naked. So I was shocked to find her there using our pool so comfortably. My neighbor has been mad at me since, and she has badmouthed me to others in the neighborhood. I told my husband and my parents about this. My husband and my dad think what I did was reasonable, but my mom told me that I should have been more understanding to her since she works hard and she's a single mom of 3. But I feel like she didn't care about our privacy at all. So am I the bonehead? Edit. Thank you for all the advice. We have purchased locks and cameras for our pool. We already have a fence. Also, we live in the US, but we were both born in China and have later moved here. We met at the university here in the US. I'm also sorry for my spelling errors. Also, we were babysitting for free, but we're not going to continue doing so. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. First, this is your pool and you get to decide who can use it, much like you can decide who can just walk into your house. Second, there are liability issues if anyone gets hurt or worse. Third, when people start demanding your things, they've lost the moral high ground. This neighbor and her kids will just have to find another place to swim until she sincerely apologizes and agrees to abide by your terms. Not the bonehead. It's your pool and your property. But, for liability reasons, get a fence and a locked gate ASAP. If one of them gets hurt on your property, they'll sue you. Not the bonehead. It takes a lot of nerve to walk over to your neighbor's house and just go in their pool. At least have the decency to knock on the door and ask, or better yet, call you up and ask. Your yard is not the public pool. You don't owe a reason. She was rude and entitled and ballsy. Just because you watch her kids and don't have kids yourself doesn't make your pool open for all to use. English is not my first language, so sorry if there's a lot wrong with my grammar. I lost my right eye to cancer in my early teens. It was a struggle to adapt, but 13 years later, I'm pretty much used to it. Now, I hate wearing a prosthetic eye. I have 3 prosthetic eyes I've gotten over the years, but due to scar tissue in my eye socket that healed weird, the prosthetics rubs against it and make me incredibly uncomfortable. So I usually just wear an eye patch instead. This obviously brings the attention of most people. Over the 13 years, I've gotten somewhat used to people asking about it, but I still find it annoying. It's not so much the asking how I lost my eye that bugs me. It's just the fact that every time when I give a short answer to that question, basically just telling them I had cancer, people start asking rather personal questions about it. These people asking are not friends. They're not people I know besides seeing them in class or on campus. I personally don't get why people think it's okay to go up and ask someone you don't know something so personal. So when I ended up transferring to a new university, I just didn't want to deal with all that again. So I started making up weird stories about how I lost my eye, ones that made people uncomfortable enough not to dig any further. I figure if they felt they had the right to make me feel uncomfortable, then why shouldn't I be able to do the same to them? So as time went on and people kept asking about it, the stories as to how I lost my eye became more and more ridiculous. I'm honestly shocked people believe half of them. For example, I actually told someone that it was because my sister poked it out with a pencil when I was a kid and our dog ate it. Yeah, someone actually believed that. Well, eventually everyone found out the stories I've been telling are not true, and now a few people are mad. One of my friends think I went too far, but honestly, I just don't get why people think they deserve the backstory to someone else's trauma. I'm not a TV show character here for your entertainment. I'm a person who had to completely change her life to adapt, and it wasn't easy. Am I the bonehead for making up ridiculous stories as to how I lost my eye because I'm tired of people asking? Now for some comments. Not the bonehead, and I spat coffee at the dog ate it part. 100% not the bonehead. I do this with scars. It's fun, and honestly, this is so minor in the grand scheme of things. However, maybe next time just elbow someone or say it very sarcastically, or come up with a totally impossible story, like fighting with aliens or ninjas. Not the bonehead. Say whatever makes you happy. Not their business. I personally would go as dramatic as possible because I believe it's all our duties to make the world a little weirder and more fun. How'd you lose your eye? You could say, I'm just terrible at keeping track of stuff. I looked but I couldn't find it. Or it was over a duel for your honor. Or you pissed off a witch. Or you lost it fighting Bigfoot during a backpacking trip. Or you could say, You would not believe how good pickpockets are these days. How about some lady plucked it out after ambushing me at my buddy's trailer? That was wild. Lawn dart accident. I didn't eat my vegetables when my parents told me to. I don't know, I think I just slept weird. I had two, so I sold the extra. I crossed my eyes and they got stuck like that, just like my mom said. What are you talking about? I have both eyes. Then you feel your face, touch the eye patch and say, oh my god, where did it go? Just some ideas. I have two sons, Jake 30 male and Carlos 30 male. Carlos is technically my stepson, but he's my son. I adopted him. I have a ranch. It's only 2 hours away from the city, so I used to go every week with my son Jake when he was little. In one of his trips to the ranch, I offhandedly promised him that one day, the ranch would be his. I met Carlos's dad when Jake and Carlos were 6. I married him a year later. Both Jake and Carlos used to go with me every week to the ranch, depending on if they were busy. When they were both 16, Jake picked up football pretty seriously, so he couldn't go to the ranch so much anymore. Carlos continued to go with me until 18, when he went to college and studied engineering and agronomy. Jake got a degree in finance. After college, Carlos asked me if he could move to the ranch to work there full time. Of course, I agreed. That was 8 years ago. Since then, he has made great improvements, and I can confidently say he's the biggest reason as to why the ranch is thriving. He also now has a wife and a little girl who live there full time. On the other hand, Jake didn't really show any interest towards the ranch. He maybe goes once every 4 months. I was having dinner with Jake the other day. We were reminiscing about a dear family friend who recently passed away without a will and how his family is now looking towards a long process of litigation because they couldn't agree about how to split his stuff. I said, good thing that I already decided mine. Jake was surprised and asked me how I'm going to split my net worth. I told him that the stuff from her mom was going to him and the ranch was to be split between Carlos and him and the house will stay with my husband. Jake then asked me if I remembered the promise I made to him when he was 6. I said I did. Then he asked me why I'm not honoring that promise. I was shocked. I asked him if he was being serious and he said yes. Then I said, it's insane that you're expecting me to do that. You're being ridiculous. He wasn't happy. We finished dinner quickly after that, and when I told him goodbye, he said to me not to contact him for a while because he had to sort out his feelings about this. That was a week ago, and he hasn't returned any of my calls. Carlos is also mad at me because Jake is basically his best friend and hasn't talked to him either. My husband is staying out of all of this. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. Carlos has sweat equity in the ranch at this point. You would be justified in leaving the ranch to Carlos alone, but you're splitting the ranch so Jake gets half of it. That's fair and it's not breaking a promise. If Jake wants the entire ranch, he can buy out Carlos's half, which Carlos has earned. OP, make sure your attorney has an airtight will with your wants clear as crystal. Not the bonehead. Does Jake want to get nothing? Because this is how he gets nothing. Not the bonehead. Not the bonehead. Not sure if the people calling you the bonehead have kids, because it's weird for them to be saying you should be keeping the promise to give a whole ranch to a 6-year-old child. You were obviously being sweet in the moment. Not to mention, you didn't have 2 kids at the time. You hear stories like this all the time. Ranch gets passed down. One child gave up their lives to work at it, the other ran off to the city. When the parents die, the ranch ends up split, and then it's bought by a developer and turned into subdivisions. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. If you like these stories, please consider subscribing. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Reddit story. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Bye for now.